would say the prospects as an engineer over the next 5 years, or even longer, is definitely good. There are more and more companies, overseas companies, MNCs, setting up R&D centers in Singapore. And what do they need? They need engineers to carry out the R&D function. Right now, there's a shortage of R&D engineers in Singapore. Secondly, in manufacturing, you may think that manufacturing is declining in Singapore, but it still takes up close to 25% of the GDP. About 15, 20 years ago when I started working, it was close to 25% GDP. 15, 20 years later today, it is still close to 25% GDP. So who runs the manufacturing plants is the engineers. Thirdly, we have a booming construction building industry. And once the buildings are up, you have building services, which Mr. Ng is part of. So who runs these companies? Again, engineers. And if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to be a technopreneur, do get into a startup like what they do in Silicon Valley. How many Silicon Valley startup entrepreneurs are engineers background? I think plentiful of them, almost all of them. So being an engineer and getting to work in an engineering related job gives you an idea of what product or what services you may want to start up for your own business in future.
Mr. Day mentioned about 25% GDP, that's true. But the multiply effects of manufacturing and engineering is 1.4. Okay, because from manufacturing engineering, it generates a lot of other services. Engineering services, supporting services, IT services, banking services, and so forth. Okay. We are the guys that actually really generate real economy, okay, not the financial guys. Okay? And that bubble, the danger is getting bigger and bigger. Okay? One day that's going to burst, another financial crisis. All right? So when economy takes a turn for the worse, okay, everything goes back to basic. Okay? And the engineers are the one who will be needed because we are still the ones who got to generate real economy growth, not the financial people.
Being a HR, I do network with other HR in the semiconductor industries. So like Micron, Global Foundries, ST Microelectronics. And when we talk to each other, we always have this problem. Cannot find engineer. Cannot find local or PR engineers.
After working for close to 15 years, I realized that engineers are not only the most sought after professionals in the market now, they are also amongst the people that contribute most to any organization. Take my company, for example. It is an engineering-based company. From the HR function to the purchasing function, to the operations function, you may think that these are not very engineering related. You may think that engineers are those people who only work on the production floor or in the R&D center. No, engineering skills have to be applied throughout all these departments. A purchaser buying engineering related materials and components who does not have engineering skills will have to rely on the expertise of his or her colleagues. Similarly, a HR executive looking for engineers for a company would need to have engineering skills himself or herself to be able to hire and appreciate the right candidate. So throughout my career, the first phase of my career, I was out of engineering. And then later on, I get back into engineering. I think from my experience tells me that engineers are very versatile people. So you should be very glad to know that you made the right choice in your studies and a right choice in your career to be engineers. Because later on, even if you want to switch to some other career, it is still always possible. But you may not want to do the switch because engineers now are the most sought after profession in Singapore. Thank you.